Many people drink coffee first thing in the morning to help wake themselves up. Others will also drink in the afternoon to get an additional boost of energy or just simply because they enjoy the taste. Some people who don't enjoy coffee may just drink tea instead, and people who enjoy both, like myself, will just drink both. As the number of people diagnosed with depression has increased over the years, more and more studies have been done on how different factors, including our diet, affect the risks of depression. Within those studies are papers that analyzed how drinking coffee and tea can reduce the risk of depression. Personally, I read a few studies and found the results really interesting and thought it would be a good idea to share it here. So without using any more time on this intro, let's get into those papers. The first paper I want to look at is a study from the Australian and New Zealand Journal of Psychiatry titled Coffee and Caffeine Consumption and Depression, a meta-analysis of observational studies by Longfei Wang and co. For those of you who may not know, a meta-analysis is a study that looks at and combines the results of other studies on the same topic in order to determine overall trends. So, put very simply, what this paper did was look at a whole bunch of other papers and combine the results to see if there was a connection between coffee or caffeine consumption and a reduced risk of depression. Going into the specifics, the paper states that for the coffee depression analysis, they took the data from 7 different studies and 7 articles that involved a total of 330,667 participants, and for the caffeine depression analysis, they took the data from 8 studies and 7 articles that involved a total of 38,223 participants. After analyzing all of the data, the authors found and concluded that coffee and caffeine consumption were significantly associated with decreased risk of depression. The piece of data I found really interesting in the article was that the authors found a linear relationship between drinking coffee and reducing the risk of depression. It states that for every cup of coffee you drink, the risk of depression decreases by 8%. Now obviously there is a limit to this. You can't just drink 12.5 cups of coffee per day and have a 0% risk of depression. It doesn't work like that. If that was the case, doctors would just assign everyone suffering from depression with a whole lot of coffee, and that would be the end of the problem. And with that much coffee per day, you'd probably just overdose on caffeine anyway, so it's probably not a good idea. But drinking a few cups of coffee can be very helpful in preventing and lowering depressive symptoms. Now, moving on to some other studies. A study from the Public Health Nutrition titled Green Tea and Coffee Consumption is inversely associated with depressive symptoms in a Japanese working population shows, well, exactly as the title states. The study conducted by Pham and Co. involved a total of 537 participants between the ages of 20 and 68 who were asked to answer a dietary questionnaire and were assessed for depressive symptoms based on a Japanese version of the CESD scale. With regards to green tea, the study found that participants who drank 2 to 3 cups per day or 4 or more cups per day had a 41% and a 51% lower odds of depressive symptoms respectively when compared to participants who drank 1 or less cups of green tea per day. With regards to coffee, the study found that participants who drank 1 to 2 cups per day or 2 or more cups per day had a 26% and a 40% lower prevalence odds of depressive symptoms respectively. The authors conclude that these findings add support for a protective role of green tea, coffee, and caffeine consumption against depression. Another study from the Archives of Internal Medicine titled Coffee, Caffeine, and Risk of Depression Among Women also showed that an increase in consumption of coffee results in a decrease in risk of depression. This study, however, also factored in decaffeinated coffee and found that no significant association was noted between decaffeinated coffee and depression. Which brings me to the next topic. How exactly does coffee and tea lower the risk of depression? Now, we just covered a study involving both caffeinated and non-caffeinated coffee and found that caffeine is likely the key ingredient in these drinks for preventing and fighting depression. In fact, caffeine does actually block mood-depressing chemicals in the brain by blocking receptors in the brain from binding with a chemical called adenosine, a chemical responsible for causing feelings of depression and fatigue. The National Coffee Association also states that coffee reduces oxidation, fights inflammation, and improves gut health, all of which help improve your mental health and fight symptoms of depression. However, the association does also state that further research is necessary to determine the exact relationship between depression and coffee, as coffee contains more than 1,000 natural compounds, and caffeine may not be the only key ingredient that reduces the risk of depression. Alright, that's all I have for this quick video. If you want to go read the studies for yourselves, the links to those studies I referenced will be in the description below. I hope everyone watching found the video helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!